Welcome to the DNX podcast. My name is Sylvia Christman. I am your host, and I'm here today with Sondre Rasch, the founder of Safety Wing. Hi, how are you?
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm actually so happy that you could make the time. And that's because, obviously, you have tried to hack something or problem. You problem solved something that I am fascinated by because it's so complex, and I'm so excited that we get a chance to talk about it. But before we start, tell me one thing. Where in the world are you right now?
Right now, I am in the middle of San Francisco. I just moved in here from Palo Alto, so I'm getting used to the life of the city.
That's awesome. So tell me just a little bit, like what is Safety Wing and what actually drew you to addressing this problem in the first place?
Yes. Well, I had worked as a freelancer for a few years when I was younger, and a couple of years ago, I started a company called Consys, which is a freelancer platform. And I also moved abroad and sort of became a digital nomad then. So one of the things we learned there was that the biggest problem that the sort of freelancers on our platform faced was that as a person working on the internet and living abroad, you don't have access to health insurance or really any other of the structures that you rely on as a full-time employee.
Yeah.
And so we actually tried to buy it, we wanted to get benefits for our freelancers. Mm-hmm. But it was impossible because our freelancers were all over the world. And the companies who offered stuff only offered it usually in one location.
Yeah.
And so we saw that this was a major problem. And eventually, after trying to get someone else to start it for a year, we decided that we had to do it ourselves. And then we started on that journey to make a global health product for digital nomads.
Yeah, I think it's awesome because obviously, I'm from Europe, you're from Europe, both at the moment in the US, and in the US it's even a state by state issue trying to figure out how to cover yourself if you move around, if you move from one state to the next, let alone leave the country and figure out how you can cover yourself on from that perspective. So I'm just fascinated with the problem because I've been looking into it for so long myself, and because I'm always trying to figure out how do I get coverage that feels necessary, and where do I want to be if something happens to me, and how can I actually solve this, because there's so few products available to people that are now that the future of work is changing, living differently than a lot of products and services offered in the marketplace.
Yes, no, exactly. And if you look at what's sort of causing the problem, it's that, people who are more sort of living on the internet a little bit and being more mobile aren't as closely connected to their state or country as their local community. But all these sort of insurance and health world was made in the old world.
Yeah.
So there are different rules everywhere. There's different rules in all the states, and there's different rules in all the countries. Yeah. So it's almost impossible to make a product which is legal everywhere. And it's almost impossible to get a product to market, which can be sold to anyone. And that combination, and if you also add the complexity that there's also huge variance in healthcare quality, makes it an sort of stupendously difficult task that we were sort of embarking on.
Yeah, I know for myself, there's the issue of which country will I be in when I might need this? Where do I want to receive treatment? Where would I want to be flown to? Because, when you have something happens, and that's what we're calling, an accident or something, it's not just the healthcare coverage, but it's also the community and support, right?
Yeah.
So, if something happens to me in Austin, Texas, I'm probably going to want to go somewhere where I know people to receive treatment. Same with if something happens to me in, let's say, Thailand, I'd be comfortable. I've got a lot of people there.
Right. No, but it's like that. I mean, and you're also that's a bad time. Like even when I had sort of minor things, like I mentioned to you earlier, that like I had this moment where I just had a strong chest pain. It turned out to be nothing, but you know, your mind quickly wanders to like, am I going to die? And and if you're sort of 1,000 miles away from home, you know, you're never as lonely, you know, as having like a health issue or an injury,
right?
And you're all alone.
Yeah.
So no, I do think that community part is.
I think it's critical.
Yeah.
It's absolutely mission critical, because what defines your home today is not just your family, but because of the way that we live, we now work in different countries, we work in different states, we're part of different communities. And, you know, we may or may not want to be part of, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would probably want to be closer to a certain set of friends for certain issues than I would want to be to certain members of my family, right? So, and even my family members are spread all over the world. So there would always be that question of like, where would I want to be? Who do I want to be around in order to get the recovery that I need should something happen to me? And that's been, for me, always a very, very complex question, and looking for services that would even address that, it has been, for the most part, almost impossible until, you know, as of late. there are some changes now that I think are much needed, because we just simply live differently, and we run our business differently. We run remote teams, we outsource, we have global teams, and these things really matter. And it's so important to know what kind of treatment can you receive in which country, and how can you get there should something happen to you? Because yeah, it's you know, I always thought that, oh, if something happens to me, I'm just going to fly to Germany. But what if something happens to me where I can't get on the plane?
Right, right, exactly. But that's many people's like plan. So there is like a segment of nomads that just don't have insurance. And we talked to them because we wanted to know why. And you know, the things that came up were which I recognized in myself from when I didn't have insurance, and which are these really short-sighted explanations, like I'll just fly home if something happens.
Yeah.
Which is such it's so difficult to do, because if something happens that's serious enough to fly home, that's exactly when you can't fly home. That's a car accident, right?
Yeah.
You can't fly home. You have to get treated locally, or at least flown in an emergency somewhere. And it's either bad or really expensive.
Totally. Yeah. I had a pretty bad motorcycle accident in the mountains of Bali a few years back. Might have been almost 10 years ago at this point, but I did have travel insurance. However, it didn't really do any good, because there was nowhere in close proximity a decent hospital that could take care of me. They kind of just patched me up and got me to one of the major cities. And then from there, I had to wait until I could fly. And then I flew to Bangkok to receive further treatments there, you know. And that was a really interesting experience, because just like you said, there was no way to just fly home, you know.
Right.
It didn't exist. You know, I just sat there by myself on the side of the road, not knowing if I'll ever get feelings back in my leg. You know, it's like, it doesn't look the way you think it does when you don't prepare yourself at all.
No. And, you know, if you think about the other, like, kind of lie I told myself, which was like, well, you know, and if something like medium happens, I'll just pay for it over the counter. I mean, it's true, and I did, but it turned out in the US, just getting a handful of tests was like, I think it was $2,500 I paid for like that thing for a handful of tests, which seemed completely routine. And what was kind of the learning there was that if you want sort of good healthcare, or like just anything more than just talking to a doctor, it quickly gets expensive. And that's even in low-cost countries if you go to like a private hospital type thing. So anyway, I found that it's not a great plan to fly home.
No.
and it's not a great time to plan to pay out of pocket either.
No, it's not. I mean, I think the US is probably the hardest place when it comes to insurance from my experience, because there's so many other, it really is. It's so difficult because even if you get travel insurance, you have to have an actual US policy to back the travel insurance should you have to be flown somewhere, but that will only be the one state in the US that can cover you, which may not be the state you want to be flown to should something happen to you. So it's a really complex issue. And I know that when I had myself flown to Bangkok because my home base coverage was in New York, and I didn't really know what to do there to receive treatments. It was perfect. I had more people in Bangkok at the time that I could rely on that could help me while I was recovering,
Yeah.
And, I mean, so, but I also am someone, like, I know what things cost, so I know which country I want to be flown to,
Right.
So even the out of pocket, I'm going to be able to cover. But, yeah, it's something to think about. It's really something to plan about. And I know that's been always a difficult task for me to address and look into, because, as somebody, I've lived nomadically for almost 17 years now, right? So I'm spending so much time in so many different countries a year without a decent policy that can cover me. It's really difficult, or I will always have to pay out of pocket. And I will admit I'm guilty of medical tourism a tad bit. A little bit. Go to where you can afford it.
Yeah,
that's my theory.
No, I mean, that makes complete sense. And we're working on like in a next product now, which is more like one you can also have in your home country, and a slightly more sort of premium. And we're gonna like include medical tourism kind of in the package, because we found that people think it's kind of nice, if they think that, and that also makes you save a lot of money. So you sort of pay a fraction, especially in the US, and especially, let's say, digital nomad types who are used to traveling. That might be attractive. So
yeah, look, I think it's just for any US expat, it's very common. I think in most of the hospitals that I frequent, that sounds really weird saying that, but the hospitals I frequent in different countries in the world, you will often see a large amount of American citizens there, because the out-of-pocket cost of getting treatments there is less than the deductible within the US, and the quality of the work is quite high,
Yes.
And the quality of the service I have received in many other countries outside the US has been much higher and better and nicer and just than anything I would have received here, which is why I have always chosen that for myself,
Yes.
I wanted somewhere where they have like, Starbucks and coffee and snacks and services and people treat you nice, versus sitting in an emergency room where everybody's annoyed, the waits are endless, and there's a big question mark whether or not you will receive treatment, which is much more so my experience of medical care in the US.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And, that's also one thing we have talked a lot about, is because we have the same understanding that healthcare is not just about health, it's also about care. And that part is often a bit underrated at hospitals, where in some places it kind of feels like it's sort of just getting you through the factory and, stuff the right medicine in you, and, off you go. And it's not a good experience at all. And that, I think, can actually be detrimental to your recovery as well.
Yeah.
Because we know that many sort of the body's own sort of restitution or immune systems are kind of reliant on feeling that, now I am home, I'm being taken care of. We can try to fix the problem.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I definitely think that's key.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I was flown to Bangkok to receive treatment there and have actual, x-rays taken and things that were necessary, and that was my choice, because it was recommended. It was a recommended hospital to me, especially for expats traveling. And the alternative would have been going somewhere in New York with my sort of mediocre healthcare plan. And the treatment that I received in this hospital made me feel so good, right? It made me feel safe. It made me feel clear. I was getting x-rays that were, I was getting an overall health checkup that was not only just checking on my vitals, but I'm looking into my broken bones and, possible nerve damage at the same time. And they did it in such a way that it was seamless and so kind, and I was treated with such care that I know I would have not received, here if I had just shown up from the airport in a hospital here with my healthcare plan, probably would have had to wait days. So, that's what I look for. I want to know that you take this seriously if I come to you with medical concerns.
No, and so to your question about why is this so complex? I mean, it's so complex because you can imagine being able to solve this problem if we ran one hospital. But how do you do that when you're connecting in a network of medical providers worldwide?
Right.
And that's really difficult, I should say. And it's more like our start of trying to solve that. So we have this kind of worldwide network, and you can sort of, you go on the website and you write in like San Francisco, and you see sort of hospitals or doctors in the network. And, there are some ways of controlling for quality, but very little that is kind of reliable currently. And of course, we are adding in, reviews and things like that, but it's, you want more. So I think that this sort of field of being able to sort by the kind of hospital, the kind of care you want to receive, I think we sort of still have a long way to go there. And that's something we want to, it's something that I think is too few people are working on right now.
Oh, I agree 100%. That's why I'm so intrigued by your ambition to problem solve this particular industry, because it's just ripe for innovation. And there's so much opportunity to really look at not only the kind of medical care, but also the treatment you receive from the individuals that come in touch with you. It's so important. Yeah. I mean, I think aesthetics themselves play a huge part in it. I want to be in a hospital that's clean.
Yes. Oh, have you heard about this? I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, care and aesthetics, two of the underrated things in healthcare. And there is this company called Go Forward, which is just here in San Francisco. And they have just taken the aesthetics thing like to the max. I mean, like Silicon Valley style. And it kind of looks like you're walking into like a big iPhone or something.
Oh, really?
But it's fantastic. Yes, they have just one, and they also kind of modern thing where you pay a monthly thing and you do like you start with a bunch of tests. It's very much focused on staying healthy versus kind of fixing you when you get sick. So it's I think it's it's just so cool to see someone doing that. But almost all of the places they think about health care much too functionally. It's like just have this, it's like a health factory or something.
Right. And I think healthcare nowadays is also so integrated. I'm part of one of those private membership. You pay your annual fee and you're part of a network of doctors that take certain kinds of insurances, so that you're, because they have pretty offices, they have alternative medicine treatments available in addition to Western medicine. And that to me just felt it's worth the annual fee of being a member, so that I feel that my needs are met on every level, because it might not just be a medication I need, it might just be a lifestyle shift, right? Like
right. Exactly.
Diet, sleep, training, mental fitness, therapy, coaching. I mean, obviously I'm a bit biased in that because I provide these services, but so I seek services like that. But I think it makes all the difference in the world to actually combine that into what we call healthcare today.
Yes. No, I absolutely think so too. And so, well, when you, how long have you lived in the U.S.?
Since 2000. Yeah, on and off, 17 years. Yeah. I spend it, I think, in the last almost decade, I think I would spend about 5 months out of the year in the country and the rest outside. Yeah.
Mm. And so what did you use for sort of healthcare when you were a digital nomad or traveling around now? And
Travel, I would maintain my, well, before Obamacare, I had an emergency policy in the US that's an accident only, no preventative care. And on top of that, I would buy a global travel policy that unfortunately would then tie me back to the US, which, now that things are changing, I no longer do. I have a global
okay,
policy.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
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 So, well, and could I also ask, like, how did you figure that out? Like, because that's also something I wondered about.
How did I figure out the global policy I have now, or the travel insurance? Well, I'm part of the Digital Nomads network, and maybe that's a German thing, but healthcare is something I've never underestimated, or maybe it's because I'm very accident prone that every time I go somewhere, something breaks. So I've had to use them on many occasions. So I don't really go anywhere without them. So I'm always on the lookout on what kind of benefits can I buy, either as a German citizen or as an American. Because my company and I am here, I'm tied to the U.S. system. And through that, in the digital nomads networks that you and I are part of, I think it's a very common conversation. And so you come across this, and then, I came across you guys not too long ago. So I wanted to ask you a million questions live because I'm fascinated by the topic. It's really hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's, you're at least one of the more sensible than I was. But no, I mean, this is such a problem that digital nomads face that no one else face in health, which is this thing that, well, actually digital nomads face with all of it, which is that all the sort of structures that give stability in your lives, like, is connected to, is in most countries, even in Norway, is very connected to be having a full-time job and being in your home country.
Yeah,
100%. So if you don't have any of those, you're very often just completely on your own, the whole social safety net, and just have to fend for yourself almost, and figure stuff out. So, and you're able to do that, and so and have succeeded at that. But many people are also kind of in dire straits, like they don't know what to choose. The options are bad or very expensive, and to some problems like sort of income protection and other things, there just aren't any options for digital nomads. You have to go home to your home country. That's it. So our actually long-term dream, now we're working on health, and that we're going to do that for a long while, but is to expand the product until we have sort of a full sort of community membership, which offers health, but also sort of income protection, other services.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. That's incredible. Yeah, I want to be part of this. Make sure you call me when you're done with that.
As soon as we're done.
I want to have the first phone call.
I want to say we're done.
Yeah, please do. Right. No, I think, I want to say this: with age comes wisdom and experience. I'm not a 20-something-year-old digital nomad, right? I started this before. I was an analog nomad when I started being a nomad. Right? There wasn't any digital component to that, and so I've had a lot of accidents, right? And I think I learned very early that you need to think about this if you want to keep living globally, to also know how you can secure yourself across the world, no matter where you go, so that you can maintain your sense of freedom. To me, those two things go hand in hand. A little bit of discipline, a little bit of planning gives me this excessive amount of freedom.
Yes. Oh, I couldn't agree more. I mean, when we were thinking about what we wanted to do, it was exactly that. I mean, that was why we made a bunch of sort of bird illustrations as our mascots, and we and what we call it safety wing was exactly that you just need you need a certain amount of safety or a sort of protection to be able to be free, and that's the purpose of it. That's what allows for the freedom and the adventure, which is what it ultimately is for. It wouldn't be
100%. Yeah, I know. I can't agree more. We're already at the end of our time. Thank you so much for speaking with me here today. I know that I got so much out of it, and I know that our listeners did too. We will post a link to your website below, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care.
All right.
That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your ongoing support. Before I leave you, I want to invite you into my world. Please go check out dnxcommunity.com. This is where you'll find the other nomads and evaders of convention. We'll see you there. And if you're interested in our English-speaking events, go and check out dnxglobal.com. You'll find the link below this podcast as well. And if you have time, one last favor, please go to iTunes, look for Sylvia Chrisman or look for the DNX podcast and leave a review. Thank you so much, lovely people, and I'll talk to you next time.